the latest update on Rashee Rice, and it's been a few. I mean, there's one. So we'll begin with the Ian Rapoport provided some new information on Rashee Rice this past weekend during the draft, talking that the Rashee Rice situation can actually benefit the Chiefs at least this year with a hold off on his potential or his looming suspension. So we're gonna make the big screen up for you. So this is what he said. As you guys laid out, the offense without Rashee Rice there, what we don't know is whether or not he'll be eligible to start the season with the Kansas City Chiefs. And really, this depends on how quickly the legal process plays out. If his case is, and he's been charged with, I believe, 6 charges. If his case wraps up, then there is a potential the NFL could issue its discipline and he would likely be suspended. If the case is still ongoing, as we've seen with several others, then likely he'd be eligible to play this season. Discipline would be handled the following season. So the timing is really an issue, not whether or not he'll actually be suspended. So that's one part of it. Now, today, James Palmer said that Rashee Rice will be suspended at least half a season, but he didn't specify it's this season or next season. But the Chiefs are planning on a potential suspension, whether it be next year or this year. This is James Palmer.
They signed Hollywood Brown this offseason, obviously, and Rashee Rice has got his legal stuff going on. How do you see?
He's going to be suspended.
Yeah,
let's just put it out there.
Yeah, I was going to leave it
They're
at that.
expecting
Yes.
half the season at least.
Yeah, so Rashee Rice is probably not going to be a part of this offense for a significant amount of time, right?
So JD, when you hear those two, the conflicts there, so you have the one report saying that he might not get suspended this year, depending on what happens with the charges. And then you also have the other fact that he's going to get suspended half the season. So let's say both are true. He doesn't get suspended this year, and then he gets the 8 games next year, or whatever it is. I mean, are you surprised that they actually may happen? I mean, I feel like the Chiefs have already got so much blowback on this whole thing in general. I feel like if he plays this season, I feel like it's going to be one of those things that's a media nightmare. We're going to be fielding questions about it all the time, and it's like, dude, like I don't want to deal with it. I mean, I feel like there could be problems if he doesn't get suspended this year.
I tell you what, man, I thought about this a lot, and I agree with you. And it seems like it's just the timing of how fast the prosecution decides to move this whole thing. Is what the case is going to be, right? And that's what it boils down to. Is like, well, how fast did they decide to go through the whole court process, render some type of verdict against Rashee Rice, and then move on from it. And then Roger Goodell's and those guys will come in and they will, give their appropriate suspension for Rashee Rice. And I agree with you. I think that I think it would be a bad look because of the blowback, because of the boneheadedness of not checking on the people and the leaving. That's the hard part when people were hurt. And so when people use that NFL players are privileged, they are never held accountable, they're able to do this, the National Felon League, like all those different things. This, if he plays, kind of gives it a bad look. It does. And like you said, it's going to be a press nightmare. It's going to be a press nightmare when he comes back from the suspension. It doesn't matter when it's going to be. Would I prefer for it to be sooner than later? Yes. I would rather them get it out of the way. And because it's so new, hey, man, let's run this thing quick. You can still practice, get some of these things, and then maybe training camp, hey, you're going to be suspended for whatever games, right? If they do it now, and he said 6 games, I think all the pitchfork people and tortures people might be okay with it, right? Or at least it would temper some of the egregious things that they're saying about him. Okay, all the ire that they have for Rashee Rice. I said I thought it was going to be at least half a season. And to be honest with you, I think it should be. That's me. And I think because of the optics of everything, it would be maybe an appropriate thing for Rashee Rice. Okay. Deshaun got 11, can't be more than 11. I think every situation is different. Every thing is different for each person, and they decide it wherever they want. But I do agree with you. I agree with you saying on that. But shoot, I mean, Deshaun really couldn't move for almost an entire year. He didn't get to play. Shoot, so the 11 games and him being out for the entire year, going through the whole court case and all of that, that was something else, right? So Rashid, like I said before, I think he wants to get this thing over, because if you go in and this thing hanging over your head, it's almost like you can't give him rest. He's not going to be able to rest from all these things. He'll get boos from people. He's going to have signs up everywhere showing, oh my gosh, the NFL has absolved themselves from the responsibility again of keeping these guys responsible for the things they do, their actions. They're not holding these guys accountable. Okay. And it's a black eye on the NFL if these things do happen. But especially being repeat Super Bowl winners, right? Because then everybody comes in. And I'm not saying that don't get me wrong. I don't think that you bow to all that pressure of different people and whatnot. I think you have a sober look at these things. I think you have to say, hey, look, you know what? Rashid understands he did wrong. Let's give the appropriate suspension on something like this of the nature of the issue, the offense, and then we move on from it. But I think sooner than later is me personally, I think it should be handled. So it's all the timing of it. So what do you think?
Yeah, my whole thing would be to get out, kind of what you're saying. I would say get out in front of it, because at the end of the day, he is going to get suspended at some point, right? And let's say Chiefs get ahead of it, and this thing, the closure of this case has happened until next year. You get out, you do 8 games, 6 to 8 games. You do that. Then he comes back week 7 or week 9, or whichever how they see fit to it. And then when the court case is done and then they want to punish him next year, well, he already served 8 games. So it's what, like when a person's on trial and they're in jail for the amount of time as the trial takes place, and they factor that into your jail time. I forget what they call it, but like, if you were in jail for 2 years while your court case was going on, and they factor that into how many years they sentence you for. So I mean, he's already getting 8. If he does 8 games, 6 to 8, there you go, boom, done. I mean, done. By the time this thing wraps up, Goodell can say, "Hey, well, the Chiefs already acted swiftly on the whole thing. He served his punishment for what happened last year."
Sure,
that's it. You drop it at that point. But yeah, because
right.
I think it's going to be a major headache if he plays this year, and Mahomes is getting asked questions about Rashee Rice, and Reed's getting asked questions about Rashee Rice week 4 after a loss or a win. We're getting questions about it. It's like, I don't know. And plus, it's just one of those things. It's not. It wouldn't sit right with a lot of people for the fact that, because it's not a question of if he did this, because he already admitted he was driving the car.
Right.
That question of the real bad thing was the racing on the highway, and was he driving? Well, we know he was racing, and we know he was driving. That's come out. There's nothing to find out in that fact. So it's like, all right, we know the wrongdoing you've done. Just serve a 6 to 8 game suspension. Take it on the chin right now, and then, I mean, you should be good. I mean, I don't think the league's going to punish you on top of already the team kind of doing that as well. So, like, I think just do it. Just do it now. But I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's all over with. It's not that dark cloud hanging over your head as much. People can move on with their lives, and I think also too the people that the victims of the accident can move on with their lives as well. And so, you want to be able to try to make amends as soon as possible, as opposed to later. And here we got to come back to court and all these different things. It's like, hey, listen, look, everybody wants to move on with their lives in a positive way. And so let the punishment that fits the crime, let that be what it is. And then, move from there. But I've seen some people sit there and say, like, people with domestic violence have gotten less games. Well, I'm looking over here. Ray Rice was suspended indefinitely. So every case is different, because then you got to take context of everything that went on, what happened and whatnot. I don't think it's a blanket statement on these things. And so when you see, maybe to them, they say the callousness of him leaving and, all the people didn't even check on each other. goes into the emotional part of it, right? And so he's looking at, like you said, what charged with 8 felonies or whatever, or how 6? What is it? 6. They got to take it into account, and the NFL's got to take it into account too. Like, hey, look, this thing can't keep happening. So we need to make an example out of Rashid Rice. We will. We're going to let them know we're tough on our guys. The NFL, we are not standing for. It is a no nonsense policy we're dealing with here. Okay. And so when we're coming in severe to make sure that this guy understands what he did wrong. And Rashid understands what he did wrong. I think whatever they'll give him, he'll take on the chin. And he'll say, okay, that's fair. I'll leave it at that. Somebody said, can he appeal it? I'm sure he can appeal it, but at this point, it depends on what it is. Depends on what it is. So, yeah, man, it's. I would rather, like you said, take it right now, get it out of the way, and then move on from that. I think we can hold the fort down until he gets back.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.